The laptop hummed softly in front of me, a comforting constant in a life that had recently felt anything but. I was still recovering physically and mentally from the fall that had shattered more than just bones. Free climbing had been my escape, my thrill, my adrenaline rush, and yet, one slip had forced me to confront how fragile everything really was. Every tendon, every sinew, every carefully constructed plan could vanish in an instant. Julian had been helpful, or at least that was what he claimed. "I'll help you clean up the source files," he had said, his voice smooth, almost soothing. "We can make sure nothing slips through the cracks." I had nodded, grateful for his presence, even if suspicion had been whispering in the back of my mind. Something didn't feel right, though I couldn't put a finger on it. Sitting here, with my coffee cooling on the desk, I opened our shared professional drive. Julian had access, I had access. We had collaborated on countless pieces, building trust and routines over years. I started to go through the folders, intending to tidy up files, make sense of notes, and ensure everything was properly backed up. And then I saw it. A folder, misfiled, almost innocuous in its title. Archive, confidential _. My fingers hovered over it for a moment. Julian hadn't mentioned this folder before. Why would he hide something so ordinary-looking? Curiosity won. I clicked, and the contents unfolded on my screen like a Pandora's box. Encrypted message threads. Dates spanning months. Names I recognized immediately, sources I had trusted with my career, individuals whose lives had been at risk because of the stories I pursued. I began scrolling, the thrill of discovery tinged with a creeping sense of dread. And there it was. Julian's name, repeatedly, not as collaborator, but as intermediary. Sharing details, exchanging files. My stomach twisted. Every message was precise, calculated, showing a betrayal so meticulous it felt like a punch to the gut. I whispered, almost unable to breathe. No, he wouldn't. I leaned back in my chair, the chair creaking under the sudden tension. Julian's betrayal wasn't just professional, it was personal. Every late-night conversation, every plan he had helped me craft, had been a mask. And now, faced with the evidence, I realized I had a choice. I could hide, keep pretending, or I could confront the truth and reclaim my integrity. I closed the folder, exhaling slowly, feeling a surge of determination. The fall, the recovery, the pain, it had changed me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was reborn. And I would not let Julian, or anyone like him, compromise the truth again. The folder on my screen felt like a ticking bomb. Each message I opened was a shock, a sharp reminder that Julian, the man I had once trusted implicitly, had been systematically undermining everything I stood for. He wasn't just careless or ambitious, he was deliberate, calculated. And it wasn't just professional sabotage. He was putting lives at risk. I stared at the screen, hands hovering over the keyboard. There were timestamps, IP logs, encrypted attachments. I knew enough to understand that Julian had given Scarlett access to one of my most sensitive sources. My chest tightened, my stomach twisting in anger and disbelief. That source had trusted me implicitly. They had confided in me at great personal risk. And Julian, he had sold them out for a promotion, trading loyalty for advancement. I whispered to myself, almost disbelieving, he's not even pretending to care. Scrolling further, I saw the most recent message. It confirmed everything I feared. Julian had provided Scarlett with the source's location, their real identity, and the story's unpublished details. Scarlett had promised him the exposure he wanted, and in return, she would destroy the whistleblower. There was no misreading it, no room for interpretation. I felt my hands shake, and I pressed them against my face to calm my racing thoughts. Rage, betrayal, and grief collided in a confusing swirl. This wasn't just about a story anymore, it was about the principle that had guided me through my career. Integrity, transparency, truth. Julian had shattered all of it. I thought of Kian Thorne, my chief editor, my mentor. Steadfast, honest, relentless in his pursuit of truth. He had guided me through investigations that had threatened powerful people, always reminding me that credibility was everything. He was the one person I could turn to now. I picked up my phone, fingers trembling as I dialed. Kian, I started, my voice tight. It's worse than I thought. Julian, he's been feeding Scarlet information. Sensitive sources, confidential stories, and the latest one, it's catastrophic. He knows it could ruin someone's life, and he doesn't care. There was silence for a moment on the line. Then Kian's voice, calm but firm. Show me everything. I want to see it firsthand. I exhaled, relief mixing with tension. I forwarded the folder, encrypted, to his secure account, watching the messages upload as if sending them out into the light might somehow purify the darkness Julian had created. As I leaned back in my chair, staring at the empty walls of my apartment, I realized something crucial. The fall, the months of painful recovery, the near-death experience, it had taught me something about life and trust. People could betray you, circumstances could crush you, but you could rise from it stronger than before. I whispered to myself, almost defiantly, I'm not just surviving. I'm coming back, and I'm going to make sure the truth wins. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control, a spark of power, and I knew the next step was clear. Julian's deception wouldn't stand. Not if I had anything to do with it. I couldn't sleep that night. The encrypted messages replayed in my mind like a nightmare on loop. Julian had done more than betray me. He had betrayed someone who trusted me with their life. My hands shook as I scrolled again through the thread, reading Scarlett's responses. Each line confirmed my worst fears. She knew exactly who my source was, where they were, and how to manipulate the story to destroy them. I whispered to myself, my voice brittle. He would actually let someone get hurt for a promotion. Images of my source's face flashed in my mind, cautious, wary, but trusting. They had confided in me, shared evidence of corruption, and counted on my professionalism to protect them. And now, because Julian's greed outweighed his ethics, their life was in jeopardy. My chest tightened. Rage, fear, and helplessness collided into a sharp ache that refused to subside. I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to steady my thoughts. There had to be a way to prevent this, a way to take back control. I couldn't let Julian or Scarlett destroy someone else for personal gain. My rebirth wasn't just about surviving my accident. It was about standing up for truth, integrity, and those who had trusted me implicitly. I grabbed my phone and sent an encrypted message to Kian Thorne. We need to talk.
Now.
It's urgent. Within minutes, he replied. I'm on my way. Send me everything. I forwarded the entire folder, every thread, every timestamp, every attachment. My fingers lingered over the send button, hesitating for just a moment. Once I clicked, there was no turning back. The evidence would be in Kian's hands, and he would know what needed to be done. When Kian arrived, his eyes scanned the documents with the intensity that always made people respect his judgment. This is severe, he said quietly. He's exposed your source intentionally. This isn't just professional sabotage. It's criminal. I swallowed, feeling the weight of months of trust, mentorship, and collaboration unravel before me. I trusted him, I admitted softly. I never thought he could go this far. Kian's expression softened slightly. And that's why we'll make this right. We'll protect the source, expose Julian and Scarlett, and make sure no one else falls victim to their ambition. We'll do it ethically, but decisively. For the first time since my fall, I felt the clarity of purpose. This was no longer about fear or survival. It was about justice, accountability, and integrity. My source's safety depended on me, and I would not fail. I took a deep breath, letting it fill the void left by shock and disbelief. Let's write the story, I said, determination sharpening my voice. Let's expose everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every danger they've caused. Kian nodded, his eyes unwavering. We'll do it together. And when it's done, the truth will stand. I exhaled, a rush of resolve flooding through me. The fall had nearly broken me. Julian had tried to destroy my life. But now, I wasn't just surviving. I was reborn, armed with truth, and ready to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Kian sat across from me in the quiet conference room, the hum of the newsroom muted behind the thick glass. For the first time since my fall, I felt a measure of control, not over my physical recovery, but over the chaos Julian had wrought. The digital evidence lay between us like a loaded weapon, and I was finally ready to use it. "I've read through everything again," Kian said, his tone calm, but edged with anger. "Julian's not just careless, he's malicious. He put your source at risk, and he did it for his own advancement." And Scarlett, she knew exactly what she was doing. I nodded, my fingers tracing the edge of the tablet displaying the encrypted threads. I didn't want to believe it at first. But the messages are clear. He's been trading my sources deliberately to boost his own career. The latest one, it's irreversible if we don't act fast. Kian leaned forward, his gaze steady. Then we act fast. We protect the source, we secure the evidence, and we write the story. Everything has to be airtight: timing, accuracy, context. No mistakes. I took a deep breath. I want to make sure the source is safe first. After that, I want the exposé to hit hard. Julian needs to be held accountable, and Scarlett too. This isn't just about revenge. It's about integrity. About showing that unethical behavior has consequences. Kian nodded approvingly. Exactly. That's why I trust you to lead this. You've always been meticulous, ethical, relentless. We'll do this by the book, but we'll make it powerful. The truth will speak for itself. As we mapped out our plan, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Julian had tried to destroy me, but he hadn't counted on my rebirth, my determination, or my alliance with someone who shared my commitment to truth. The fear and anger still lingered, but they were tempered by focus and purpose. "You've changed," Kian said suddenly, almost softly, as if noticing something beyond the plan itself. "Since the accident, I can see it. You're sharper, braver. You're not just surviving anymore. You're driving the story, driving the truth." I felt heat rise to my cheeks, but I didn't look away. I had to. The fall, it reminded me how fragile life is. And Julian's betrayal, it reminded me what happens when people take advantage of that fragility. I can't let it happen again. I won't. Kian's expression softened, and he placed a reassuring hand on mine. "You won't. And I'll be here with you, every step of the way. Not just as your editor, but as someone who believes in you." The warmth of that trust, that partnership, sent a rush through me that had nothing to do with adrenaline and everything to do with connection. In that moment, I realized that this story wasn't just about exposing Julian, it was also about rebuilding my faith in people who could be trusted. I nodded, a fierce determination in my eyes. "Let's do this, Kian. Let's make sure the truth wins." He smiled, a rare softness in his eyes, and I knew we were aligned. Not just professionally, but morally and maybe, in ways I hadn't fully acknowledged yet, personally. The newsroom felt electric that morning, buzzing with the usual undercurrent of urgency, but for me, it was different. Every keystroke, every phone call, every glance at Kian beside me carried the weight of months of betrayal, danger, and near destruction. Today, Julian and Scarlett would be exposed, and nothing would be able to undo what we were about to do. Kian leaned close over my shoulder, whispering, "Double-check every timestamp, every message. This story has to be bulletproof. If Julian or Scarlett try to fight it, we need to be untouchable." I nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard, uploading encrypted screenshots, threading quotes, and drafting paragraphs that would leave no doubt of their unethical actions. My pulse was steady, though my heart thumped in my chest, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally reclaiming control. I paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "It's that strange," I said softly, almost to myself. "I spent so long fearing the fall, fearing betrayal. And now it feels like I'm finally standing upright, seeing everything clearly." Kian glanced at me, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "That's because you've survived. And you're not just surviving anymore, you're owning it." By late afternoon, the piece was finalized. The headline was sharp, undeniable. "Betrayal behind the scenes: How Julian Hale sold sensitive sources to advance his career." Subheadings detailed Scarlett's involvement, the evidence of digital exchanges, and the threats to whistleblowers. Every word was a hammer striking at deceit. I hit send with a quiet finality. The newsroom fell into a momentary hush as the story went live online. Alerts pinged, phones buzzed, and the ripple began. Comments poured in, emails from colleagues flooded the inbox, and Kian's hand found mine in a subtle squeeze. Minutes later, HR called. Julian was terminated immediately. Scarlett's reputation crumbled, and industry contacts quietly began blacklisting her. The digital evidence, presented with precision and integrity, had left them no room to maneuver. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was thorough, and it was delivered. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of computers now soothing instead of overwhelming. Kian's voice cut through my reverie, soft but filled with pride. You did it, Willow. You protected your source, exposed the truth, and did it with integrity. Not many could have handled it like you did. A warmth spread through me, one that had nothing to do with adrenaline or fear. It was satisfaction, yes, but deeper. It was the affirmation that survival, rebirth, and moral courage could coexist. I had faced betrayal, risked everything, and emerged not just intact, but stronger. Kian's hand brushed against mine again. And now, maybe it's time to celebrate, not just the story, but us. I met his gaze, a slow smile forming. Us. Yes, he said, with the quiet certainty of someone who'd been by your side through fire and come out believing in you. The truth brought us together. Now, let's see where it takes us. I exhaled, letting the tension of months finally slip away. Julian and Scarlett were exposed, my source safe, and my integrity intact. For the first time since the fall, I felt a profound, unshakable clarity. I was reborn, and nothing could compromise the life I was building now. Truthful, fearless, and finally, free. The aftermath of the exposé was a strange, surreal calm. The newsroom buzzed with the usual chaos, but for me, it was quieter, lighter somehow. Julian's termination and Scarlett's downfall had been immediate, and the public reaction was intense, yet predictable. Colleagues congratulated me, sources expressed gratitude, and the story rippled across media outlets. But beneath all the noise, I felt something more profound, a sense of reclamation. I walked through the office, letting my eyes linger on the familiar clutter of desks, the screens filled with breaking stories, and the smell of fresh coffee that always meant something important was happening. Every detail that had once been mundane now felt like a reminder that life continued, that integrity mattered, and that I had survived the chaos of betrayal and near-death to see it. Kian found me at my desk, leaning slightly against the frame with a casualness that hid his concern. You're quieter than usual, he said, processing the fallout. I nodded, closing my laptop. It's a lot to take in. Julian, it's still hard to believe someone I trusted could plan something so calculated. And Scarlett, she wasn't just ambitious, she was reckless, willing to ruin someone's life for advantage. I keep replaying it in my head. He walked closer, resting a hand lightly on the back of my chair. It's natural to feel that. Betrayal cuts deep, Willow. But you handled it. You protected your source, exposed the truth, and stayed true to your principles. That's rare. That's impressive. I felt a warmth rise in me that had nothing to do with pride. It was trust, safety, and something softer, more intimate. I couldn't have done it without you. I admitted, my voice quieter than intended. You guided me, supported me, and reminded me what mattered. I don't know if I would have stayed steady without your calm presence. He gave a small, knowing smile. And now you can stand on your own, knowing the truth always has power. But you don't have to stand alone either. That's what I'm here for. I leaned back, letting the weight of his words sink in. The months of recovery, both physical and emotional, had been grueling. My fall had forced me to confront the fragility of life and the danger of trusting facades. Julian's betrayal had driven home the importance of integrity and vigilance. And now, finally, I was beginning to feel whole again. A soft laugh escaped me. I never thought surviving a near-death experience could feel like freedom. But it does. I see now that life is fragile, yes, but it's also ours to reclaim if we're brave enough. Kian's hand brushed mine once more, reassuringly. And you're brave. You've reborn yourself through all this, Willow. That's something to hold on to. And maybe to share. I smiled, the tension in my shoulders easing. For the first time since my fall, I felt clarity, safety, and something else entirely, possibility. Julian and Scarlett were behind me. The truth had been served, and a new chapter was beginning. And in Kian's quiet, unwavering presence, I realized that perhaps the rebirth wasn't just about survival or ethics. It was also about finding someone to trust, to partner with, and maybe even to love. The morning light streamed through the windows of my apartment, warming the corners that had once felt shadowed by fear and doubt. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up feeling fragile or cautious. Instead, I felt steady, grounded, and strangely eager. The fall, the betrayal, the months of recovery, they had all left me scarred, yes, but stronger than I had ever imagined. Kian arrived with coffee in hand, his easy presence reminding me that the world could still be gentle, even after the chaos. "Good morning, reborn journalist," he teased, handing me the cup. "How does it feel to finally take a deep breath without looking over your shoulder?" I smiled, letting the warmth of the coffee seep into my hands. "It feels powerful, like I've been given a second chance, and this time, I'm not wasting it." He studied me for a moment, eyes thoughtful. "You've changed, Willow. Not just in how you handle work, but how you carry yourself. I can see it, confidence, clarity, purpose. You're rising stronger than ever." I took a sip of coffee, letting the truth of his words settle in.
He was right.
The months of rebuilding weren't easy. There had been days when the pain of my injuries and the sting of betrayal had felt unbearable. But each setback had taught me resilience. Each sleepless night had sharpened my determination, and each careful step had reminded me what mattered most: integrity, truth, and the courage to live authentically. "Do you remember how terrified I was?" I asked softly, almost to myself. After the fall, I thought I'd lost control over everything. And Julian, he made me doubt who I could trust. I wasn't sure I could ever feel safe again. Kian reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. "You found safety within yourself first. That's why you're stronger now. And now, you're ready not only to live fully, but to love fully too if you let yourself." I felt heat rise to my cheeks, a flutter of nerves mixed with excitement. I want that. I want to live without fear, with someone I trust by my side." He smiled, his gaze unwavering. "Then let's make that our reality. Together. No masks, no facades. Just honesty, trust, and partnership." I leaned forward, closing the distance between us, and let the words I had carried in my heart finally take form. "Together," I whispered. He took my hand, a firm but gentle grip, and I felt the weight of months of fear, doubt, and betrayal dissolve. The newsroom scandals, the exposure, the danger, they were all behind me. Ahead was clarity, purpose, and the knowledge that I could face anything. As we shared a quiet, lingering moment, I realized that the rebirth I had been through wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming life, embracing truth, and allowing myself to trust, and maybe even love, again. For the first time in years, I felt fully alive. And this time, I knew I wasn't just surviving, I was rising strong. The newsroom had quieted down after the storm of the exposé. Julian's termination was official, Scarlett's reputation lay in ruins, and my source was safe, finally able to move forward without fear. The tension that had gripped me for months had eased, replaced by a calm I hadn't thought possible. And Kian was here not just as my mentor or editor, but as something more, someone I could lean on, trust, and now love. We met for coffee that morning, the small cafe buzzing with life, but inside our little corner, the world felt still. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine lightly, a subtle reminder of the connection that had grown quietly but undeniably between us. "You've earned this," he said softly, his eyes holding mine. "Every moment of pain, every sleepless night, every fear you faced, You've come through stronger, smarter, and braver. I admire that more than you know. I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun filtering through the window. I couldn't have done it without you, I admitted, my voice low. You were there when I was falling apart, steady and unwavering. I think I've realized something over the past few months. He leaned slightly closer, curiosity softening his usually sharp gaze. What's that? I want to live fully. I want to trust again. And I want to do that with you. I confessed, my heart pounding but my voice steady. His lips curved into a slow, approving smile. I've hoped you'd say that, he whispered, because I want the same. I've been here, watching you rise through the fire, and I've realized I don't want to face the future without you by my side. My chest tightened with a mix of joy and anticipation. Then, let's not waste time, I said, a laugh escaping me despite the seriousness of the moment. Let's see where this goes. No masks, no facades. Just us. Kian reached across, taking my hand fully into his. Just us, he echoed, his touch grounding me in a way nothing else ever had. And then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned in, our lips meeting in a kiss that was tender, affirming, and full of promise. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't frantic, it was steady, like the calm after a storm, like the certainty I had been craving for so long. In that moment, I felt every fear, every betrayal, every painful memory wash away. All that remained was trust, connection, and a shared commitment to the truth and to each other. We pulled back slightly, foreheads resting together. So, this is us now? I asked, a playful smile tugging at my lips. He nodded, a quiet confidence in his eyes. Yes, us. Partners in work, in life, in everything. For the first time since the fall, I felt completely whole. My rebirth wasn't just survival anymore. It was love, integrity, and the promise of tomorrow. With Kian by my side, I knew that the future was ours to shape, fearless, honest, and full of hope. And as we walked out of the cafe hand in hand, the world felt alive again. Bright, open, and entirely ours.